Hi, everyone. This is the second part of our conversation with Dr. Clint Haycock of the MindShift Podcast. If you didn't hear part one last week, why don't you just listen to the whole thing at the same time at MindShift Podcast? Just look it up right now and you can listen from beginning to end. If you already heard it, well, here is the second half. Trying to peel back these layers over years that you had to do and I had to do. Did you lose friends? Did you, what was all that? What was the repercussions?
Yeah, I certainly lost family members and friends. We had a huge community. The church that we were plugged into in the UK over here when we first moved, we kind of got roped into going, but then we stayed for about 3.5, 4 years because a lot of the people were absolutely wonderful. They really were. They welcomed us in, kind of restored our faith in Christians and humanity a little bit. Because remember, I was saying we came over here, I was completely burned out. I didn't want to have anything to do with church or Christians. But they took us in. They were really loving. They helped us get started, gave us furniture and helped us find a place to live. I mean, they did a lot for
nice.
us.
That's nice.
Yeah, it really was. And so I thought, okay, I might be able to do this. I could actually get back on the horse again. But then when we finally left that church, pretty much everybody ghosted us, except for there's one family, one couple that still occasionally comes and visits us or messages us, on Twitter or Facebook. But that's it. All the rest of them have just moved on. And, we were super close to so many people, and I only have one relationship with one sister, my sister Valerie. We're the only ones out of all my sisters that talk to us. My mom and I, we haven't talked in years. So all that's gone. It's done now. And that's the fallout for what you get, I guess, for walking away.
And, again, back to the irony of how unlike who they're supposed to be following. Yeah. It's not lost on anyone, but there's always those damn loophole verses that they'll use, Don't be yoked with unbelievers, blah, blah, blah. But I've seen this vitriol even worse with Trump. There's such a demarcation now between especially evangelicals, conservative evangelicals, and how just, again, like you said, they just find shit on everyone now.
Yeah.
And
One of my questions is always like, what do they picture the world like if they're able to get the message to everybody and everybody is part of the church? Yeah. What do they picture life like? Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm fascinated by this whole thing of dominion theology, why I started getting into it, because the basic storyline is that they believe that Christians should have dominion over the world. They should be in charge, and that is a divine mandate from God himself. And that's what they're working toward with all the political stuff. And so for the last 4 years, they believed that Trump was going to help them achieve dominion. They were going to establish a theocracy. That's what they want. And so you don't want to be living in a theocracy. That's the worst thing. Every time there's been one in history, it's been a horror show. It's been a dystopian existence. And that's what they're looking to accomplish in America and around the world as well. So that's why I'm warning people about what's going on, because these prophets, they're part of that whole movement as well. So hopefully I'm alerting people to what they're doing. It's all part of this dominion sort of mandate that they think they're living out, and Trump's helping them achieve.
And
so,
Trump,
it's crazy stuff.
Yeah. So Trump obviously couldn't care a rat's ass. Bishop, is it Harry Jackson Jr.? So he has his spiritual advisors. You've got Paula Cain, who supposedly helped him become a Christian. And I wrote an article on her for Jezebel when she first started popping up. And because she led the prayer when Trump had his only presidential inauguration. So,
Unless he gets in 2024.
well,
Oh my
it's
God.
going to happen. But he, Paula White, then you've got Jackson, and then you have Bonnie and I's former pastor, who is one of Trump's right-hand,
Oh, really?
yep, spiritual
Wow.
people.
Showing up at all the super spreader events.
Yeah.
And,
Good for him.
and he blocked me. But,
Aw.
yeah, I asked him, hey, kids are in cages. Anyway, so you have these spiritual leaders. They get their picture taken with them in the Oval Office all the time. This Harry Jackson passed away. We don't know if it was COVID related or what. Trump hasn't said a damn thing. He doesn't
Really?
care
Of course not.
about these people. He does not care. He wanted the votes. They brought him the votes. And that's going to be it.
Well, and he delivered. It was a transactional relationship, so he delivered on his promises, which was to appoint numerous conservative judges
Yep.
on many levels of the federal benches, as well as obviously Amy Coney Barrett was the final one, and then he's also delivered on promises like outlawing trans people in the military, stuff like that.
Right.
The Evangelical Advisory Board, they were behind that executive order. So he's delivering on the promises he made to them in exchange for their votes and their support. So it's a win-win as both sides see it.
Well, and he kept saying after the numbers started trickling in for Biden, well, look, I'll take this to the Supreme Court. Like he could just go there, and all the
knock on their
people
door.
he's stuck in there will go,
Hey,
this will
Amy.
be fine. This will be fine.
Yeah, you're the winner. What are you talking about? Throw all this stuff out. Yeah, like you can just go to the Supreme Court. You don't
Right.
just go.
Show up.
Yeah.
Show up and file your suit. I mean, it's got to work its way up all the levels, and it's being rejected roundly, level by level, state by state. It's a joke. He's lost,
Yeah.
38 cases nationwide?
Yeah. And some are
They've
so
all been chucked
random.
out.
So
Yeah.
for your listeners, we've said it on our podcast. So Bonnie and I also grew up in, I wouldn't say walking distance, maybe bike riding if our parents ever let me leave, my driveway.
I'm walking my bike. I'm just walking my bike.
10 miles away from home.
Probably about 2 miles.
Not riding.
From Mar-a-Lago. You would cross the bridge. So we lived on the other side of the bridge. I want to make that clear.
The wrong side of the bridge?
Right, correct. And it used to be owned by the post heiress of the cereal Post.
Right.
And she had like these broken bottles. Remember that, Bonnie?
Yep, she
That
had
were-
these big concrete walls, and on the top there were chunks
Oh, right.
of glass.
Shards of broken glass.
Yeah, so no one
Keep
would.
the intruders out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So my brother
Wow.
one day had Post Raisin Bran, and he poured a bowl, and there wasn't a raisin in it. So he thought he's going to write
Just
Mrs.
Bran.
Post. Yeah,
There's supposed to be one raisin per bowl at
at
least.
least.
He was robbed.
He writes Mrs. Post, and 3
Where's my
weeks
raisin?
later she dies, and he, in his child mind, thought he did that. So of course, I'm
Your
like,
letter caused this.
could you write Trump, please? Write Trump.
Get a hold of your brother, quick.
Yeah. But so there was this whole situation that Trump, he's always suing. And in Palm Beach County, he was always suing. And he actually either formed or became part of this, we don't like noise group of assholes because he had been trying to sue the Palm Beach International Airport because their flight plan always went over Mar-a-Lago before it turned to go
Right.
their own direction.
Right.
Over the
Bothering
water.
his guests. Right.
Yeah. So he said
him.
it shook the tiles on the roof or his dentures. He was upset.
Yeah.
He had this multi-million-dollar lawsuit that's been going on for 25 years, and he never won it. And someone said the only way you're not going to have, flights over your house is if it's protected airspace. Well, there's only one way that can happen. And he has
it. It all comes together.
Yeah. So, I'm like, that's a conspiracy, or is it because he's such an asshole? I don't know. It's not like he knows what he's doing. He walked into the White House and didn't know that he needed to bring his own staff and, but
that's his end game. That was his end game all this whole time.
Could be.
Just to get
sure
the flight pattern.
Could be. So
I'm sure of it.
He dropped that lawsuit, obviously. So, okay,
I've never heard that story.
Back to who you want to punch.
Oh, yeah.
Or just who you dislike or whatever. Who are your top three? Let's do everyone. Top three.
Oh, man. My top three. Well, Keneth Copeland, I think, has risen to the top of the list because the guy's fingerprints are all over all these crazy prophets and prophetic ministries that have been saying all this wacky stuff. I mean, did you catch that whole manic laughter thing that he did?
Yeah.
I mean, that was just...
That was creepy as
disturbing.
shit.
I mean, it was just horrifying, chilling, and he trying to blow COVID away. And why does this guy still have a voice? I don't understand how he has any credibility left. And yet, there he is. He's got his own private jet, his own private runway, his mega mansion out behind his house. He's got a runway. I mean, come on, really? He's worth between $300 and $760 million personally. That's how much money he has in the bank.
And
so,
people are listening.
Ministry.
That's what I want to know. Like, so you think, in my mind, I would think he just has his maybe dwindling and aging followers. But you're saying that no, he actually is still an influence on others?
Oh, yeah. Because he's got all these, they appear to be like news shows. He's got the Believer's Voice of Victory. He's got, what is it called? Flashpoint. Yeah, Flashpoint.
That's right. Like our youth group names. Impact.
Yeah, and there's another one, America, I want to say America First, but it's something else. But he's got these, they seem like news programs, but they're actually from a Christian point of view. And it turns out they're all part of the Keneth Copeland Ministries. He's got churches that he has pastors installed in. So he's got this guy, George Pearsons, who's his son-in-law. He's married to his oldest daughter, Terry Copeland. And so this is another church in Texas. I mean, he's got his fingers in so many pies. It's unbelievable how much money he's raking in off of his empire. So he's on the list for sure. He's probably the top one of the top ones.
Yeah.
And then I would say Paula White Cain.
Yeah.
And then Dutch Sheets. Have you heard of him?
No. I just thought that was like a brand. Yeah.
That's not a product.
Right.
It's not a product. Dutch Sheets. Yeah, he's a Seven Mountains Dominion, one of these apostles, prophets. And he, oh my God, I've been following his story. So about a week after the election, maybe less than a week, he decided he needed to take a prophetic trip to the headwaters of the Allegheny River in Pennsylvania. And while the election was still in play in Pennsylvania, and he dug a hole by the riverbank and he buried a bunch of magical items and prayed over it, expecting somehow the effects to flow down the river. I mean, I'm not making this up.
Wow.
He did this.
God.
I mean, and he's on YouTube talking about his trips to Pennsylvania and how he was praying and interceding and proclaiming a Trump victory, and he buried all this stuff by the riverbank. I mean, what the hell is going on here?
Shit.
And
Yeah.
then Carl Lentz, I think, is my third one, who's just recently made the list for, I found out he lied to this woman and misrepresented himself, and he sounds like a complete douche in the way he's gone about this. He really does. He's an asshole.
Totally.
And yet he's getting away with it. I mean, now, this is the thing. They sold their house in New Jersey for $1.5 million about 10 days before he was officially fired. So that makes me suspicious.
Totally.
That he must have had a heads up.
Oh, for sure.
And now they're living in Southern California, $16,000 a month rental property. They're paying $16,000 a month. So they're living large in SoCal on the beach, and he's not, he's lost his job, but obviously he's not hurting.
Well,
so what a piece of work.
Bieber can just, seriously, I'm sure Justin Bieber will be like, I've struggled with that too, brother. You're gonna get through
Bieber
it.
unfriended him.
Did
This
he?
is the big shock. Yeah.
He's not
He
a believer.
unfriended him on Instagram. Shocking.
That's our version.
So, yeah.
Oh my God.
That may have been his biggest loss, as he lost the Bieb.
God.
So Bieber's dumped him, at least for now.
Right.
So that may be his biggest, issue. So those are my top 3.
And that's the thing, like in Christianity, you do get to revive yourself.
Yeah, he'll lay low
Reinvent
for a
yourself.
while.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you've got a good testimony.
Yeah.
Because Bonnie and I were like, we never had a good testimony,
Yeah.
People getting up like, I have no arms because I did drugs. And you're just like, that's great. And now I want a good testimony. Carl Lentz will have one.
So what's your top 3 then? What names you come up with?
For Karen, me, it would be Clint Haycock. Let's see. I think I've got to put at the top Franklin Graham.
Oh, yeah.
He just has too much influence. Samaritan's Purse. People.
Christmas boxes.
Yeah. So our neighborhood takes that on to do goodwill by packing these boxes that'll help the homeless or the poor or whatever's happening. And I'm like, anything with an ulterior motive can go fuck itself. Like even, if I as an atheist was going out and saying, here's a toothbrush, but you can't believe in anything. I just don't like that. I don't like it. I think Franklin Graham, because he's so hard into things. Sean Feucht
Yep.
is
He's on the list.
it. So I've been going after him. I'm sure he's really scared of my tweets since I have, so few followers. He's really nervous. But
It's just because you're not putting out any commercial product like singing.
That's right.
Yeah, there you go. So I did put him. I've put him in one article that went viral. Hopefully I'll have another article published. And he is such an asshole with his twirly little hair that it just frustrates me beyond all belief. But recently, because for people who don't know, he travels the states in his Airstream and then does these huge gatherings of unmasked people where they sing his songs over and over. And he thinks that's what the world needs and that's what America needs, is that we're going against the Constitution by shutting down churches and singing, and this is his way.
He went to where George Floyd was murdered. That was the biggest one that got me, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Minneapolis, was it?
Yeah.
Did a concert almost on the spot where George Floyd got murdered by the cops. I mean,
And he did
optics,
it.
man.
Yeah.
Shocking.
And it was so loud that the local DJs who were black doing their own thing in the street stopped because he was overpowering the volume,
blowing them out
with his long blonde locks. But he was just in Rolling Stone called him a super spreader. Yeah. So he's now made T-shirts that people can get. That's like super spreader for Jesus, and
super spreader for Jesus.
I'm telling you.
So Sean Feucht.
1, 2. I think
Who's your third?
Might be a certain pastor who has been radicalized. Jack Graham.
Jack Graham.
He's
no relation to Billy Graham, then?
No, believe it or not. Graham is just an unfortunate name. Teddy Grahams, them. But he is our former pastor. He's been radicalized, and what he says and what he tweets now is not what we knew. And, I'm going to cuss. I'll pass it on to Bonnie.
It's just money and power.
Yep.
Right. Yep. celebrity status.
Yeah.
My main guy that I find really the saddest is Jerry Falwell Jr. Because, well, I mean, he's just, it's the whole American thing of, oh, my dad established this business, I'm going to go into it. And clearly he's not into the heart of any of the bullshit that they're spreading at Liberty University, like fining kids for breaking the moral codes, when he's clearly more interested in
flaunting it.
And watching his wife have sex with the pool attendant guy. I totally believe that that's true. It's just, he's just like, hey, here's another industry where I can make money because it's handed to me on a plate. He just seems like a super phony. By the way, when I was in Miami recently, I drove by the hostel and you wouldn't have a clue that there was a hostel there. It's just, it's this little bungalowy kind of area right next to a parking lot.
And explain for listeners.
Oh, yeah.
The hostel is.
So Jerry and his wife met this pool attendant at the Fontainebleau Hotel, and somehow they struck up a relationship, a friendship, where they always traveled together. And he gave them like some kind of $1 million to invest, and he invested it in a hostel that has a very close proximity to the party scene in Miami Beach, which is a lot of drinking and drugs and LGBTQ population. And so that just goes against everything that Liberty University is about. And did you
super
read?
Shady.
Super shady. Why on earth are you giving somebody you don't know that well that much money?
Yeah, they're just trying to help them out. Come on, they're just being good Christians. That's what they do, isn't it?
Yeah, but it just seems like he wants to live a life other than what he's living, and it's just a way to make money.
And he did.
Yeah, and he established a football presence at Liberty University, which is just weird. Christians should not play football that well.
Well, and there's so much. Even him getting fired from Liberty was only because they finally buckled under the pressure, but they had been ignoring so many things for so many years. But he ran like a personality cult there. They were afraid of him. It's sort of like Trump. Him and Trump have a lot of similarities in the way they run their business in their country, you know. Yeah. They've just bullied people into submission, and they're afraid to speak out. So he got away with murder for years there. He should have been sacked years ago. Totally. But anyway, so you got
So Falwell,
just because he's completely phony. I resent the hell out of the fact that Jim Baker is still around.
I love to hate Jim
Baker. Pizza buckets.
I
want a pizza bucket.
I know.
Because does nobody realize he's just selling shit? It's just about the money.
Yeah. Colloidal silver and all sorts of bullshit.
So, one of my favorite things, Clint, if you have not watched the Jim Baker show where Paula White is on with her husband.
I've seen it.
And singing Don't Stop Believing, but they've changed the words. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just painful to watch.
I can't get past the fact that they know that they are tricking people who aren't smart.
Yeah.
And that makes me angry.
In the name of Jesus.
Yeah. And
so you got Jim Baker. Who's the third one then?
I'm going to go off a little bit and go with Scott Baio.
What?
Good. All right.
Chachi?
That's right.
What did he do?
No, I'm just kidding. That I just can't think of a third one. And Scott Baio not being invited to the Happy Days reunion makes me so happy.
Because he's a big, Republican.
Yeah.
Well, take mine,
yours,
which would be Greg Locke. Like he's just so
he's another one
mad at everyone, and
that's the angry car guy. He'll sit in his car and just videotape himself
ranting in the car.
Right, and I'm so upset that he has so many followers. Like that kind of thing makes me mad. That people are like, this guy is irate. He said he almost punched the worker at Dunkin' Donuts for wearing a mask, and people are like, I'm going to follow him. I'm like,
Yeah, he's the anti-mask pastor who
Yeah.
just came out. He had a major affair, didn't he, with his
yes.
assistant? Yeah,
Well,
that was it was his
yeah.
wife's best friend.
Oh,
And it was
even
his
grosser.
assistant. So he divorced his wife and married the assistant lady he was having. Yeah, he was having the affair with.
We knew that, but
Yeah.
like I don't know if the affair, has been documented, proven, etc. But it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
And then if you saw any pictures, it used to be he and this current wife. And I hate to say, but that current wife always looks scared. Like she has a
Yeah, wouldn't you
scared
be
look.
scared?
And now it's just
He's
him.
an angry, ranting man sitting in his
Right.
car.
And he
how is
thinks-
this guy a pastor? You know?
I know.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
he's right near where I am, and I don't know anyone who likes him. So I think it's more of a social media following because I don't think his church is that big.
And they're all accounts that he's created.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
But he's got a huge Twitter following. I looked at his Twitter feed the other day. Yeah, he's sitting in his car ranting about we're not going to take this anymore. We're sick to death of you people, liberal media, and telling us we got to wear masks and all this. And so that's his game, isn't it?
Yep. Just
Well,
ignorant bash.
joke's
of
going to
work.
be on him when every elderly person is dead and isn't giving to the Jim Bakers and the Keneth Copelands of the world anymore.
Yeah.
Who's going to buy his pizza buckets?
Who's going to... I just keep thinking, like, is the new generation that's coming up, what are they going to do? Are they
They're
going to get
leaving.
these
A
people...
lot of them, aren't they?
Yeah.
But are they going to buy this bullshit anymore?
But that's the thing, look at a guy like Carl Lentz. He was a hipster pastor. That was the thing about him. He was cool, he was hip, he was setting fashion trends. Everybody at Hillsong, New York bought the fedora hat that he used to wear. The skinny jeans. I mean, it's ridiculous. They did a whole piece on, I can't remember, Salon, might have been a couple of years ago, about how he's a trendsetter, and all the people that are really on the inside line, they copied his fashion style at the church, and part of it was this hat that he used to wear all the time, and he's gone down in flames apparently at this point. So are these people going to walk out? I don't know. Or are they going to double down? Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, that's what is fascinating, and what I was just doing research on recently for something is the people who are leaving church because of their stance on COVID and masks. And so you have that. You have, all these charlatans coming out more. But they're all moving to Parler or Parlay, which I've looked in, and it's horrifying. And they are starting to grab onto the QAnon stuff, probably mostly because they know they can ride that
Absolutely
insanity.
Well, we did a bunch of episodes. I did an episode on that. We did a bunch of research on QAnon. It's basically like an updated version of the Satanic Panic back in the 80s. It's just that now you've got the internet, and it's like you say, it's spreading like wildfire among evangelicalism, just like the Satanic Panic did back when I was a kid. I remember, Procter and Gamble. They were the devil because they had a logo on their shampoo and their toothpaste. So the guy with the wizard with the 13 stars.
Yeah, I remember
it's just
that
unbelievable.
too.
You're washing your hair with the devil if you're using Head and Shoulders.
Yeah.
And it's all coming around again. And the evangelicals are one of the biggest spreaders of QAnon now since the lockdown. So that's another thing to keep an eye on.
For sure. Yep.
Yep, it is.
Well, I
don't know. I keep hoping we learn things, but it doesn't seem to be happening.
No, we're
Seems to be the case.
we're getting dumber. Well, Bonnie, let's make a note to listen to his QAnon ones for our research.
Right.
We're not joking. That would be helpful
That's a real
because
thing.
we're both like, oh man, we got to dig into that, but that just seems overwhelming. We don't want to look
Someone's
at.
already done it.
There we go.
We did it. Yeah, I did it with a friend of mine, Chris Shelton, who's an ex-Scientologist. So we had a really good discussion about it. Yeah, so every time I want to talk about cult type stuff, I always hit up Chris because he comes out of that. What's interesting about Chris is that even though he's an ex-Scientologist and I'm an ex-evangelical, our backstories are very, very similar as far as the cult sort of piece of how it all worked. And that's how we kind of got together originally, was talking about his experiences in Scientology. And I'm like, but that sounds like me growing up in fundamentalist Christianity. Why? But it's not. I didn't, I wasn't raised a Scientologist. That shouldn't be, but yet it was.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
Yeah.
Well, when you mentioned that you hadn't talked to your sisters in years, I thought, well, that's not how it's supposed to be with just, nice Christians.
Yeah, you get shunned and everything. That's straight out of the cult playbook, isn't it?
Right.
Shunning is the last sort of thing. People who leave or get kicked out, they tend to get shunned, and then they're cut off from the community. So, some of my sisters, that's what they did to me because, well, for one thing, my oldest daughter is gay, so that was a big thing. I was like, oh, well, that's it. He's lost because she's lost,
Yeah.
So that was part of the shunning as well when she came out.
Yeah, and that's, I get that, and I have people I don't talk to in my family who, they changed into the whole Rhema Bible College people. Mm-hmm. And, when my mom was dying, they're like, she is not dying. And I'm like, she's right there. She's
dying.
You need to believe. You don't have enough faith, just that kind of situation. And then you just realize, you don't hear from them again after that. And like, okay, well, I've got that in the family. And your whole essence. Bonnie had this less because Bonnie was a heathen in Hollywood. She was working.
And I have a very tiny family.
Oh, right.
Right.
So
she
I
was doing
sometimes
that.
am very grateful for that.
Yeah.
You got lucky there.
You and I, Clint, were, working in the quote church, me as a missionary. Yep. So it's like your entire essence is going to be
identity.
Gone.
Yeah.
Who you are, how your brain works, because you're no longer praying under your breath consistently. You're, just your dreams, your, everything you're going to do starts to change. And you have to start, from just one little building block. Mm-hmm. And you don't even know what it is sometimes. So.
Exactly. It's a different journey for every person, I think, because, all of our experiences are so different, aren't they? Even though you and I were raised in the church, we have a different journey. But I think you're right. It's educating yourself and figuring out, okay, who do I want to be? My whole identity was totally wrapped up in the religious aspect of everything.
Yeah.
Feeling guilty. I was tweeting this morning about how I used to feel guilty for not evangelizing enough. Mm-hmm. It was a constant anxiety of, I've got to tell people about Jesus everywhere I go. My neighbors, my friends, my family, my coworkers. My God, it's just, and I don't have that anymore.
It's so
but it was huge.
Did your mind wander during quiet time? Yeah, like all of that.
Watch out.
All of
sinful
the
thoughts.
Stuff. Yeah, just constant, guilt. And that's what is so fascinating, watching what the church is doing now, even in its move towards a progressive Christianity, where that can be seen as freedom. But I want to say, no, that's if you are pledging your life to something or someone, that's just not freedom. It's the bottom line.
They're just trying to keep up with things so they get more people, so they get more money, and they continue, and it's job security.
Bonnie is all about the follow the money. I'm all about the earnestness of our stupidity. So we usually meet in the middle.
But the leaders are the evil follow the money ones, and the followers are the the earnest ones.
Well, money and power too, isn't it? It's the political power. As you said, your ex-pastor, he loves, posing with Trump in the White House, Oval Office, wherever it is. And that is a huge ego stroke. Then he can go back to his congregation and look, I was at the White House this weekend meeting with the president as a pastor. That's huge, man.
Yeah, exactly. But P.S. he's not poor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's money involved too.
Right. And that's, exactly. Yeah, Trump was smart because that our Southern Baptist pastor does not agree with prosperity gospel preached by Paula White. Paula White doesn't agree with, Franklin Graham, who isn't, trying to heal people of demons. So none of them have any dogma in common except Trump. Trump, he just needs those votes. And
They've
have
set all
people
that
in
aside,
common
haven't they?
who are
Yeah.
giving them money.
right.
Sorry, I will stop saying the same thing over and over again.
So what's this about money then?
What?
Exactly. Have you
What?
downloaded Tithely, Clint?
No, I haven't.
So, yes, it's an app so you can tithe to your church when you're not there.
I will do that.
Yeah, man.
As soon as you finish this podcast episode,
I know.
I'm on it.
Quickly let's each say what our favorite episode of our own is so
Yes.
that listeners can maybe look those up if they were interesting or meaningful.
I will start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I am still always thinking about the people from Oregon or who bought property in Oregon and followed the Indian guru guy and they're called the Rajneeshpuram.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember
So-
that. Antelope, Oregon.
Yeah.
And because it was this dumb property that really wasn't used, and it kind of made sense on a small level to me. Like, that's how it starts. You start buying property, and then you have rights, and then you buy the sheriff department or the police department, and then you start running for government. And oh, guess what? Half the people there are in your cult, so they're going to vote for you. And then it just builds and builds and builds. And then that whole idea that they were accused or convicted, I'm not sure which one, of poisoning the local salad bars.
They did. In the Dalles, Oregon. Yeah. They
Yeah.
put like E. coli in the salad bars.
Yeah, that they hid in
Yeah,
their
they did.
sleeves, and they dumped it into like taco sauce. And so,
they did.
I mean, to me also in the being a fan of true crime, I always think, well, that is a crime that not enough people have gotten, the idea to do. And I wonder why, because there's so many salad bars and public.
It's too easy. Now you did it. You just gave everyone ideas.
Right.
There's the idea. But I think one of the main reasons that one stuck with me is because I am absolutely convinced that there's a woman in that documentary. It's a 6-part documentary, and I can't remember what it's called right now.
Wild Country.
Yeah, it's on
That's
Netflix.
the one. Yes.
Yeah, I
So
watched it.
there's a woman in there that I am convinced is a client of mine. And there's absolutely no good way to say to a client, hey, by the way, were you in a cult in
Ever poison a
Oregon?
salad bar?
That's right. Do you like salad?
Yeah, so let's go to
It's just-
salad.
Yeah.
Let me check your sleeves first.
So, I don't know at what point I'm going to be able to find this out, but I've got to figure out a way. Like, maybe
Not
she'll
something
get
you can just
angry at us
casually-
and fire us.
Right.
And I'll be like, hey, wait, before you go.
You were
What
a cultist.
number? What number episode? Do you know?
That was episode number 24.
And I was a missionary in India and actually toured the ashram when they left and were
Ooh.
in India.
Yeah.
And it was
Impressive.
crazy.
Yeah.
And I love that you got to
yeah.
tell me that, because before you had probably told me that and I was like, blah, blah, India. I have no idea what was going on there. So
now
it
it's
really,
suddenly important.
yeah, it was nice to have the stories.
Yeah, and we
from so
lived-
many years back.
We lived around the people, and I mean, they looked drugged out, but they weren't. They were just all
Yeah.
spacey walking around, and
Maybe they were happy.
I guess they were blissful.
Yeah, it's that cult stare, isn't it? But back on your point about Antelope, Oregon, though, Bonnie, do you think about that's basically what Bethel Redding has done to the
That's-
town of Redding?
You read my mind. I'm like,
So
that's
I
it.
was just going to say that.
Yeah.
That's exactly. They're moving into the political sector. They've basically taken over that town. People are afraid to speak out against the church, because people who aren't involved in the church, because they have so much power in that city.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a cult that's operating out of Redding, California.
I totally agree. Yep. Okay, my favorite episode, and Bonnie and I are realizing this now, is also a cult one. We did an episode in July, I think it's number 74, called Jesus 2.0, about the man in Siberia who claims to be Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
He is now in prison, but
What? I'm shocked.
I know. And I'm going to shock you more. It had to do with
Cult
sex.
leaders always end up doing so well,
Yeah.
typically.
It had to do with sex, which
I can't believe that either.
Yep. So I am fascinated with that. And I think it does go back. One, the houses that they lived in and built were adorable. So I do
Yes.
love that part. But it goes back to, how does this start? And how do I get into this business? How
Yeah.
do people follow you up to the point that you're like, you can only drink juice, not water? If you can't afford juice, drink your urine. Like, where is it in your mind that is like, I've bought into everything, I'm buying into that? I don't.
Absolutely.
Fascinating.
It's the cult psychology. I'm fascinated by it too. That you find people doing the craziest stuff, but it's a long progression, isn't it? They don't come in on day one and say, okay, you're joining a cult and you're going to be drinking your own urine.
Right,
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Right.
You know,
It's a
a
process.
very long progression. Yeah, breaking them down and establishing mind control and undue influence and all the stuff that goes on inside of cults, isn't it?
But who was the guy who was telling your friend Jeff something like, I'm going to sell God? And then sure enough, he decided to, and now he's making a lot of money and doing it.
Casey Treat. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's got a big mega church in Seattle. He started at the high school that I went to, the Christian high school, in the gymnasium. And he's a mega prosperity gospel guy out of Seattle.
But he physically said, or he literally said to your friend, I'm going to sell God.
Yeah. Hey, kid,
Hey, kid.
Wow.
you want to know how to make a bunch of money? Sell God. Yep.
I know.
Absolutely true. That's
Yep.
and yeah,
Yeah.
we're now seeing so much more that cult-like following as we see the evangelical church
Sure.
turn towards this Trumpist dominionism stuff, even
It's
in
a
the
cult of personality.
yeah,
And that
yeah.
HBO documentary told us how to get started, you know, the Keith Raniere thing,
Oh.
Nexium.
Yeah.
So
The
now we all
vow,
have
yeah.
a playbook.
There
That's
you go.
right.
I'm starting it. So what is your
Yep.
favorite, most fascinating thing you did for your podcast?
Well, I think one of my favorite episodes, probably not still my favorite one, is the one that I did with my sister Valerie, going back about 3 years
Yeah.
ago now. I think it's number 45. You can find them, the archive ones, either on my website or on my Podbean feed. I've got all the older episodes in there. But we talked
And it's
about
on
growing up
Spotify.
in a.
Yeah.
It is on Spotify as well, but I don't
Yep.
know if it has the older episodes. But that episode, I still get people who listen to that episode and say that it brings them to tears, because hearing my sister's story about having to give her baby up for adoption, it's just my parents were just cruel, just absolutely cruel in the way the whole thing went down, all in a Christian context, supposedly loving context, forcing her to give up her baby, and how she's slowly over the decades really rebuilt her life. That was a shattering experience, and it's a really powerful story. So that's probably one of my top all-time favorite ones that I've ever done.
It's
Yeah.
so good. That one broke my heart. There's absolutely
is.
nothing funny about it. And I loved how honest she was and how she
Yeah.
was able to talk to you about it. And that was really brave, I think, of both of you.
And Bonnie
and
was
that's-
telling me about it, and I haven't listened yet. I will, get in tears about it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the details, it is fascinating. And so, we can hear these stories that are so foreign, yet we grow up and almost all of us know of someone, who had to go through these terrible things.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
So that happened
Especially
with people we
parents.
know. Yeah.
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 And now it gives me a little bit more of an idea of what they were going through.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I think it's so important to find help with religious trauma syndrome. I've done a bunch of episodes with people like Dr. Marlene Winnell and other people who are experts on RTS, and I think that's hugely important because, first of all, you got to identify what the traumas have been in your life, religious trauma specifically, and then you've got to work through that. And some people really need therapy and counseling. I mean, I've had it, and it's, you need to bounce it off someone who knows how to process it, how how to help you process through it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it's really important for some people to get therapy.
Do you have, because I'm still doing our website, but that's one thing I want to put up is resources. I know that there's a religious institute of therapy, or I said that all wrong.
Yeah.
I know a few therapists I've connected with on social media in the deconversion thing. Do you have any resources if people are looking for that on your website?
Not on the website, but I would say one of the best ones is the Recovering from Religion. So the RFR, I think it's rfr.org. I think that's the website, because they can, and the Secular Therapy Project, that's another part of the RFR, because if you need a therapist, they can find you one who'll meet you, online, Zoom, Skype call, whatever. If you're in Oklahoma and they're in South Africa, it doesn't matter. Nowadays, we can just do a Zoom call or a Skype call.
Right.
So they put people in touch. And the RFR, they have support groups and counselors for people who are struggling and coming out of religion. Recovering from religion is exactly what it sounds like. And so I've got a friend who hosts a group, I think every Saturday night, just, 5, 6, 7 people. They just meet on Zoom every Saturday, and they're just a support group as part of this RFR group.
That's cool.
I have recommended the Clergy Project
to
some people. That's definitely for people still in or maybe after who were pastors or any kind of minister who lost their faith, because a lot of them come out and they have nothing that they feel they can do either. They don't have training for anything else.
Yeah, it's true. A lot of people have no skills, do they? Marketable skills.
Right.
Well, that was something I noticed in the entertainment industry, too. They hang on to those jobs, with all their might, because what can you do? You can't take your background in entertainment and go, I'm going to go work in Missouri in entertainment. Yeah. No, you're not.
Unless it's in Branson.
Yeah.
Hey, there's one place they might get a gig,
Oh, man. Talk about Jim Baker. Yeah.
Oh, right on.
But, yeah, that's very true, that they're just are people and they need help. And whether they're clergy, and especially my heart breaks for these kids who are LGBT, who are getting kicked out of their houses younger than they should can maneuver the world.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're getting booted out on the streets because their parents can't handle it.
Yeah.
It happens a lot in the Mormon community as well, from what I understand.
Wow.
Because officially their doctrine is, a gay person cannot go to heaven. And so these kids are growing up in these Mormon households, and they're hearing this doctrine, and they're like, kids have committed suicide within the LDS church. Gay teens. I mean, that is just unbelievably sad and traumatic, isn't it?
It's very.
It's heartbreaking.
And we've had a lot of ministers, we've seen big name ones. I knew of a youth minister where I am, committing suicide. And in the back of my mind, I'm always, were they struggling with guilt of porn addiction, LBGT, those main ones that really make them feel distant.
You have to keep it a secret.
Yeah, yeah.
Living a double life, It's
totally.
sad.
Yeah.
That's
this has been great talking to you. I'm sure you feel the same.
Yes. Thank you for that.
I doubt it, but it really, it's great to have someone else, that's doing such good work that we can point people to and be like, look at his library of things that he's recorded that might resonate with what you're going through or worried about or need to know more about.
Yeah, and are not as and are more of a deep dive into serious issues.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and that's something, if people want to subscribe to my YouTube channel as well, because I've recently been organizing it into categories like playlists. So I'm trying to put episodes in what I think they fit in terms of categories. So if you want to find, I need to talk about religious trauma syndrome or cult education, you can just go to that playlist, and that's easier to find instead of scrolling through, a couple hundred episodes from the past. So I think I'm going to keep doing that and try to get that more and more organized.
Yeah, give us all the places people can find you.
The best way, you can follow me on Twitter at MindShift 2018. You can also look up the MindShift Podcast Facebook page, or you can go on YouTube and look up MindShift Podcast and subscribe to my channel.
Very nice. Cool. Will do. And we're most often on Instagram. That seems to resonate. Deconversion therapy. You just type that into Twitter too. And then Facebook, you can follow the podcast, but you can join the community. And we sort of screen it. You have to answer questions because we don't want to have people sneaking in, making our members feel bad about themselves. Yep. So
it's got to be a safe place, isn't it?
I can't believe I'm a member of a dog group on Facebook, and people go in there and shit on people. I'm like, you guys.
Really?
It's a dog Facebook group.
I know.
Yeah.
Politics, man. Everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trolling.
So that's great. I think, people go find all the places that you're at and subscribe, because I really like the work that you're doing and appreciate it. Though I'm bummed that you don't have a British accent, because my British accent is so good.
Spot on. And my daughter does, though. She's really interesting. So,
that's cute.
Yeah, she's picked it up over the years, but she was only like 10 or 11 when we moved here. So, yeah, she's picked it up a lot, but none of the rest of us have one.
Yeah, you done it all. You didn't.
No.
You didn't go Madonna.
I didn't, but I have a lot of the. I use a lot of the British slang, though.
Yeah,
that's the thing. I notice that when I go back to the States, I'll use a lot of British slang, and people will be like, "What are you talking about?" What they don't know, because that's just how we speak here, So I find it funny when I go back and people don't know the British slang as opposed to the American slang.
Right.
Yeah. My husband's Australian, lived in Australia. And so I have to ask, when you were going to church in the UK, did they do those weird coffee breaks?
Coffee breaks?
During church?
No, we did them after, like typical church. You sit in the back and you have your fellowship time.
And you just stand around awkwardly with cups of coffee. Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah, like Mr. Bean. That's what it always, ill-fitting suits, getting your sugar cube. Yeah, Australia did that too. But they would sometimes break. They would do singing and then break.
All right.
And they go back to church?
You just go in the big hall, and then you go back and sit in church. I guess you could escape then.
I was going to say that's so people can leave early.
Chance. Yeah. I could duck out the back door.
Exactly. Didn't think of that.
Amazing. We have to definitely do this again, though, sometime in the future.
Yeah, let's find one person, and we both can just take them down.
There you go.
I'm sure nobody will do anything.
Bonnie and I will just hurl insults while you do all the heavy lifting of it.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
I'm in.
Let's do it. And we'll see everyone next week.
Good talk.
All right.
Yes.
Thanks, lady. I'll see you again.
Thanks.
Yeah.